Okay, you say, are peaceniks driving solar-powered cars? I would if there was one that worked and if it was affordable, but that accusation you're making only works if you're saying that we can only maintain our cars by invading other countries and taking their oil. Being dependent on foreign oil and continuing to drive regular cars to survive like we all have to does not require invading other countries or killing hundreds of thousands of civilians. If you think you're making anti-war people seem hypocritical, I don't think you're succeeding. You say we should stay in Iraq forever. Who gives us authority to take over other people's land and make permanent bases there? Why do you feel comfortable with America being able to make permanent bases in other people's lands if you wouldn't feel comfortable with, like, Serbians making a permanent base in Maryland or Indonesians making a permanent base in Philly? It's because you think the U.S. doesn't have to behave like other countries because we have the firepower and we're the world police. I'm sure that's what the Russians were saying when they were trying to act like the police in Afghanistan or all up and down Eastern Europe. They said, we're not invading Czechoslovakia, we're just securing it, securing our borders, bringing security to all these people in Czechoslovakia. You just sit back and let our tanks roll in, and we'll keep you safe, and we'll keep our own borders safe. It's all about security, and you don't get a vote on the matter because we know what we're doing. We're the local world police. They say, we know what's best for those people. Okay. What you're talking about is not democracy. I mean, you want democracy for Americans to agree on where we should put down our bases, but it doesn't sound like you care about democracy for the people in those other countries where you want permanent bases. I guarantee if you took a vote of Iraqis right now, the majority would ask for American troops to get out and to take all their bases with them. There have been polls conducted in Iraq. It just doesn't get talked about here in the U.S. much because it is not very favorable to us. You ask, what do you suggest as an alternative to this war? This one's pretty easy. I suggest that we follow the Constitution of the United States. It says that wars are supposed to be declared by Congress. Congress doesn't get to turn them over to the president like a blank check. It also says that we are supposed to obey treaties with other countries and international agreements. It says something about the law of the land, like the supreme law of the land. Other treaties and international agreements are supposed to be treated like the supreme law of the land. So one of those international agreements would be the United Nations Charter, which spells out very clearly when any of its member nations are taking legal actions to defend itself against attacks. The war against Iraq was not a defensive action. It was our choice to start a war. There was no imminent or growing threat. There were no WMDs, and our leaders knew that. They had been wanting and planning to launch a war in Iraq, and they trumped up claims about WMDs in order to justify the war they wanted. So the two most obvious ways George Bush and his administration have violated the United States Constitution have been in launching a war that was not declared by Congress and by ignoring our international agreements like the United Nations Charter and the Geneva Conventions. I'm afraid they won't be brought to justice, but impeaching them would be a good alternative to illegal wars. If we bring home all the troops right now, it will not leave the U.S. open to attack from a country that's in the middle of a civil war. Those people will be way too busy picking up the pieces and shooting each other to waste time attacking us. But if we bring the troops home right now and begin impeachment proceedings against Bush and his administration, it will teach future politicians and presidents that we won't be confused when they blindly attack other countries and tell us that it makes us more secure. It's not only illegal and immoral, but it also makes us less secure. Now we have the original Al-Qaeda, plus survivors of our attacks in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's just more and more people mad at us. We should track down Al-Qaeda and bring them to justice, but instead of doing that, we're just making more and more people mad at us. So the flowers, there's no flowers. You don't need any flowers. The symbol is not just, like kids and people trying to be fashionable, holding up their fingers and stuff. There's some thought behind it. Also, it's not necessarily easy. People get arrested for some of these protests that you say is so easy. And I'm sorry to get agitated. If you saw it differently, you would feel that it was your patriotic duty to stop a war if you thought it was illegal or immoral. So I guess that's it. Thank you.